this video is about. She drove to the science fair, and a rich stranger offered to carry her bag. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The air was thick with the scent of spring as Sarah parked her old, rusting car outside the sprawling convention center. She felt a thrill of excitement mixed with anxiety as she glanced at the bustling crowd entering the venue. The annual science fair was a big deal in Oak Ridge, and for weeks, Sarah had been preparing her project on renewable energy for her high school's science club. She had invested countless hours researching, assembling, and perfecting every detail. Today was her moment to shine, or so she hoped. With one last deep breath, she glanced at the large, colorful banners draping the entrance. Her heart raced, a mix of anticipation and self-doubt swirling inside her. Stepping out of her car, she grabbed her bag, filled with her project materials, and made her way to the entrance. As she walked, she noticed her reflection in the glass doors. Her hair pulled back into a messy bun, a few strands defiantly falling into her face, eyes bright but framed by exhaustion. She smirked at her own reflection, mumbling to herself, "You're doing this, Sarah." The moment she stepped inside, the sound of laughter and chatter enveloped her. Students from various schools were eagerly showcasing their projects, while parents and judges moved about, admiring the displays. Sarah's heart swelled with pride and fear. Her project was one of the few aimed at sustainability, a topic she felt passionately about. Setting her bag down at her designated table, she began to set up her display. The poster board was meticulously crafted, detailing her research on solar panels and their potential impact on energy consumption. As she placed the final touches on her project, she felt a flutter of nervousness settle in her stomach. "Excuse me, is this your display?" A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Sarah turned and was momentarily stunned. A tall man stood before her, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit that seemed out of place amid the colorful chaos of the fair. His hair was dark and tousled, a single lock falling effortlessly over his forehead. He had an air of confidence about him, as if he owned the world. "Ah, yes, that's mine," she replied, forcing herself to regain composure. "Are you a judge?" He laughed lightly, a warm, rich sound that made her heart race. "Not quite. I'm just here to support a friend." He gestured to a nearby booth where a group of students presented a project on robotics. "But I couldn't help but admire your project. It looks impressive." "Thank you," Sarah said, a blush creeping to her cheeks. "It's about solar energy and its potential benefits." "Very relevant," he said, stepping closer to inspect her display. "The world needs more people like you, passionate about sustainable solutions." She felt a thrill at his words, her confidence swelling. "I really believe in it. We have to do something about climate change, and every little bit counts, right?" "Absolutely," he replied, a hint of admiration in his gaze. "I'm Noah, by the way." "Sarah," she said, extending her hand. His grip was firm yet gentle, sending an unexpected jolt of electricity through her. "So, Sarah, do you think you have a good chance of winning?" he asked, leaning casually against the table, his presence unexpectedly comforting. "I'm hoping so," she admitted, glancing down at her project. "But I'm up against some stiff competition. Honestly, I'm just glad to be showcasing something I care about." "Passion always shines through," he remarked, a spark in his eyes. "What if you win? What's next for you?" "I suppose I'd want to pursue environmental science in college," she said, looking into his piercing blue eyes. "It's what I'm most passionate about." "That's amazing," he said, genuine admiration evident in his voice. "You'll make a difference, I can tell." Before she could respond, a loud commotion erupted from the booth next to hers. A group of students cheered as one of them, clearly excited, held up a trophy. Sarah's excitement flickered with a hint of jealousy. She momentarily envied their triumph, wondering if she would ever experience that kind of victory. "Looks like they're celebrating," Noah said, pulling her attention back. "How about I help you with your display? I can carry your bag so you can focus on your presentation." "Oh, that's not necessary," Sarah replied. "I can manage." "I insist," he interrupted gently, a playful glint in his eye. "Consider it my way of supporting local talent." Reluctantly, she handed him her bag, feeling a mix of gratitude and confusion. Why was this handsome stranger being so kind? She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. "Thanks, I guess," she said, a shy smile playing on her lips. "So, what's your friend's project about?" "Something on robotics, as I mentioned," he replied, glancing over at the animated group. "But I'm more interested in what you're doing here." They exchanged small talk, sharing bits of their lives. Noah spoke of his recent travels and his family's interest in philanthropy, while Sarah shared her dreams and experiences at school. Each word felt charged with an unspoken connection, an invisible thread weaving them closer. As the competition began, she felt her nerves creeping back. The judges moved from booth to booth, taking notes, while students anxiously awaited their turn to present. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and Sarah found herself stealing glances at Noah, who stood near her, an encouraging smile on his face. When it was finally her turn, she felt the weight of his presence beside her. Standing in front of the judges, she took a deep breath, the warmth of Noah's gaze comforting her as she began her presentation. Words flowed more easily than she'd anticipated, and she could see the judges nodding, their interest piqued. As she concluded, a wave of relief washed over her. The judges asked a few questions, and she felt a rush of adrenaline as they engaged with her ideas. When she stepped back, Noah was there, beaming with pride. "You were incredible, Sarah. I bet they were impressed," he said, his eyes sparkling. "Thanks. I hope so," she replied, still riding the high of the moment. It felt good to share it. Just as they shared a quiet, intimate moment, a loud voice interrupted them. "Noah, there you are!" A strikingly beautiful woman approached, her long hair cascading down her back, wearing a designer dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Sarah's heart sank. The chemistry she had felt moments ago with Noah suddenly felt overshadowed. "Grace!" he exclaimed, his expression shifting to one of surprise. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Just came to cheer on my little brother," Grace said, her tone playful yet possessive. She gave Noah a teasing smile, then turned her gaze to Sarah. "And who is this?" "Just a fellow participant," Noah said, a hint of awkwardness in his voice. Sarah forced a smile, feeling the tension in the air shift. "I'm Sarah. I just presented my project on solar energy." "Interesting," Grace replied, her tone cool. "I hope you did well." "Thanks," Sarah managed, her stomach twisting with insecurity. Was she reading too much into Grace's tone? "Well, I'll leave you two to chat," Grace said, a forced smile on her lips, before walking away with an air of confidence that pierced through the moment. "Noah, Sarah started, but he held up a hand, his expression conflicted. "Let's not read into that. Grace and I, it's complicated," he said, running a hand through his hair, a hint of frustration evident. "Right," Sarah replied, feeling her earlier excitement dissipate. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not intruding," he insisted, stepping closer. "I was just having a great time with you, and then she showed up," Sarah finished for him, trying to mask the disappointment creeping in. "Don't let her get to you. You're talented, and you deserve to win," he said, his gaze steady on her. "Thanks, I appreciate that," she replied, feeling a warmth return. "But it's hard not to compare myself, especially with someone like her around." Noah regarded her thoughtfully, and in that moment she saw the flicker of something deeper in his eyes. "You shouldn't compare yourself to anyone. You're uniquely you, and that's what matters." As their eyes locked, a tension filled the space between them, a connection that felt undeniable. But the moment was broken by the judge's announcement of the winners, pulling them back to reality. "Good luck, Sarah," Noah said softly, his voice laced with encouragement. "I'll be right here cheering for you." She took a deep breath, her heart racing again as she stepped toward the stage with renewed determination. The future felt uncertain, but with Noah's words echoing in her mind, she embraced the moment, ready to face whatever came next. The judges took their places on the elevated platform, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing the mixture of hope and fear coursing through her veins. She glanced at Noah, who stood at the edge of the crowd, an unwavering support amidst the growing tension. As the head judge cleared his throat, Sarah felt the eyes of the audience on her, their gazes a blend of curiosity and expectation. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the hours she had poured into her project. She was prepared. She could do this. "Welcome, everyone, to the annual Oak Ridge Science Fair," the judge announced, his voice resonating through the hall. "Today, we celebrate the innovative spirit of our students. Let's begin with the honorable mentions." Sarah barely registered the names being called, her focus narrowing to her own breathing. Each name echoed like a countdown, amplifying her anxiety. When the judge finally announced a third-place winner, a wave of relief washed over her for those who had earned it. A small part of her craved that recognition, yet she quickly shoved it aside. Second place goes to Daniel Morris with his project on robotics. Applause erupted, and Sarah found herself joining in, clapping for Daniel, whose excitement radiated through the room. Yet, as the cheers rang in her ears, a flicker of doubt crept back in. Would anyone care about renewable energy amidst the flash of robotics? And now, for the first-place winner. Her heart thudded in her chest as he paused dramatically. Sarah Bennett with her project on renewable energy. A stunned silence enveloped her before the room exploded with applause and cheers. Sarah blinked in disbelief, her mind racing to process the announcement. It felt surreal, like an echo from a dream. Everything around her blurred as the judges gestured for her to come forward. "Congratulations, Sarah." Noah's voice broke through the cacophony, and she turned to see him grinning ear to ear. His pride was infectious, and she felt her heart swell further. As she stepped onto the stage, her hands trembling slightly, she clutched the trophy tightly, a symbol of her hard work and dedication. The judges congratulated her, their words a blur as she tried to absorb the moment. The spotlight felt both exhilarating and terrifying, and she could almost hear the pulse of her racing heart. "Thank you so much," she managed to say, her voice carrying a tremor of emotion. "I'm really passionate about the environment, and it's encouraging to see it recognized." As she spoke, she scanned the audience, searching for familiar faces. There was her science teacher, beaming with pride, and her friends offering enthusiastic thumbs-ups. But it was Noah's unwavering gaze that anchored her. When the applause eventually subsided, she stepped back, still in disbelief. The thrill of victory felt almost surreal, and yet, as she returned to Noah's side, reality jolted her. "You did it!" he exclaimed, pulling her into a celebratory embrace. The warmth of his arms enveloped her, igniting a spark of something deeper. She breathed in his scent, a mix of sandalwood and fresh linen, and suddenly everything felt electric. "Thanks, Noah," she replied, her voice soft and sincere. "I couldn't have done it without your support. You really helped calm my nerves. I was just there to enjoy the show," he said, his smile sincere yet playful. "But I'm glad I did. You were phenomenal up there." She felt her cheeks flush, the rush of accomplishment mingling with the thrill of his compliments. "Really? You think so?" "I know so," he said, his voice low and intense. "You have a passion that's contagious, Sarah. It shines through in everything you touch." As they stood close, the space between them pulsed with unspoken tension. But before she could dwell too long on it, Grace appeared again, her presence slicing through the moment like a cold wind. "Wow, look who won," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Congratulations, Sarah. Quite the surprise." "Thanks," Sarah replied, forcing a smile while her stomach churned. It was hard not to feel intimidated by Grace's polished demeanor, the faintest hint of disdain behind her words. "Did you expect anything else, Grace?" Noah interjected, his voice firm. Sarah put in the work, and it paid off. Grace raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms. Oh, I'm sure she did. But let's not forget how subjective these things can be. Subjective or not, she deserved to win, Noah shot back, his expression turning sharper as he defended Sarah. Whatever you say, Noah, Grace replied with a dismissive wave, a smirk playing on her lips as she glanced at Sarah. I just hope this little win doesn't get to your head. With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving a trail of discomfort in her wake. Sarah felt her heart sink, a wave of insecurity crashing over her. Don't let her get to you, Noah encouraged, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You earned this moment. Easy for you to say, she muttered, the sting of Gracie's words resonating louder than Noah's encouragement. It's hard not to feel undermined by someone like her. Noah's expression softened, his gaze locking onto hers with intensity. I know how you feel, but you have to remember this isn't about Grace or anyone else. It's about you and your work. But it feels like there's always someone ready to undermine me, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Even at the fair, I could feel the judgment. He stepped closer, his presence warm and steady. What they think doesn't define your worth, Sarah. You've got something special, and it shines brighter than anyone's doubt. She searched his eyes, finding something genuine there. It made her heart race, the warmth of his reassurance igniting a longing she hadn't fully acknowledged. You really believe that? Absolutely, he affirmed, his gaze unwavering. And I'm not just saying it to make you feel better. You have a way of connecting with people through your passion, and that's what truly matters. For a moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the two of them standing in the midst of celebration and chaos. She felt drawn to him, the chemistry undeniable, but a knot of uncertainty tightened in her stomach. Thank you, Noah, she said, her voice softer now. That means a lot to me. Good, he replied, his smile returning, though it felt charged with something deeper. I really mean it. You're going to go far, and I want to be part of that journey if you'll let me. Of course, she replied, her heart fluttering at the thought. They were two kindred spirits, both passionate about making a difference. But as her heart raced at the prospect of something more, doubt crept back in. Would someone like Noah truly want to be involved in her life? Or was he just being polite, swayed by the excitement of the moment? Before she could voice her thoughts, a voice broke through her reverie. Sarah, can we get a picture with the winner? A group of her classmates called from a few feet away, excitement lighting up their faces. Noah chuckled, stepping back slightly to give her space. You go, celebrate your win. I'll be right here. She nodded, still swimming in the whirlwind of emotions. As she joined her friends, she couldn't shake the feeling of Noah's gaze lingering on her, and the way it sent shivers down her spine. The cheers and laughter enveloped her as they posed for photos, the trophy glinting in the bright lights. Each click of the camera felt like a snapshot of a fleeting moment, the joy, the celebration, the connections. But as her friends surrounded her, the thrill of victory began to mingle with an undercurrent of uncertainty. In the back of her mind, the thought of Grace lingered, her words echoing like a haunting melody. Hey, Sarah, look this way, one of her friends called, snapping her back to the present. Smile, she exclaimed, forcing a beaming grin as they posed together. But even amidst the celebration, her thoughts drifted back to the moment with Noah. The warmth of his presence, the intensity of his words, the chemistry that hung in the air like an unspoken promise. As the day wore on, the convention center buzzed with energy, but Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and uncertainty brewing in her. She had achieved something remarkable, yet the path ahead remained shrouded in questions about herself, her worth, and what it could mean to truly open her heart. When she finally rejoined Noah, he looked as if he had been waiting just for her. I'm really proud of you, Sarah, he said sincerely, his voice carrying a note of admiration that made her pulse race. Thanks, Noah, she replied, her heart catching in her throat. This day wouldn't have felt the same without you around. Then let's make sure you have more victories ahead, he said, a playful smirk on his lips. "I'm all about supporting local talent, remember?" As they shared a laugh, the tension from earlier began to fade, replaced by something lighter, more hopeful. Yet, beneath the surface, the questions lingered like. The celebration continued around them, the sounds of laughter and applause echoing in the halls of the convention center. Sarah and Noah stood slightly apart from the crowd, enveloped in a bubble of shared excitement and burgeoning tension. "You deserve every bit of this," Noah said, his voice low and sincere. "But tell me your secret. How did you make that presentation so compelling?" "I think it was just the nerves trying to keep pace with the excitement," Sarah admitted, brushing back a loose strand of hair that had escaped her bun. "But honestly, it felt real, like I was sharing a piece of my heart." He chuckled softly, a warm sound that made the edges of her anxiety blur. "That's the secret then. Authenticity. It's a rare trait, and it's what makes you stand out." It was hard to concentrate on his compliments with the lingering presence of Grace still hovering in the back of her mind. Sarah glanced across the room, spotting Grace in conversation with other students, her laughter ringing out like a chime. A knot tightened in Sarah's stomach. "I just hope this doesn't turn into some sort of rivalry," Sarah said, unable to keep the insecurity from creeping into her voice. Noah's expression shifted, his brows knitting together. "Rivalry?" he echoed, surprised. "Why would you think that?" "Grace has always been the top student," Sarah confessed. "She's charming and confident. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong in the same space." He stepped closer, the warmth of his presence enveloping her. "You need to trust in your talent and the effort you put into this project. It's not about anyone else. It's about you. You won today. That speaks volumes." His words stirred something inside her, the flutter of hope mixed with a flicker of doubt. But what if it was just a fluke? What if the judges were swayed by pity or novelty? "No, Sarah," he said firmly, his blue eyes piercing into hers. "You worked hard. You believed in your project, and that made a difference. Trust in yourself." She felt a pulse of connection between them, an invisible thread that tightened as they stood close, tension hanging in the air like the sweet scent of cotton candy pervasive in the convention center. "You're right," she conceded, her heart racing inexplicably. "It's just, sometimes I feel like it's not enough." "Enough for what?" "You're already doing more than most," Noah replied gently. "You're making waves, and that's admirable. You can't measure your worth against someone else's standards." His words held a gravity that made her feel exposed, raw and yet understood. "It's just hard, you know," she murmured. "I've always felt like I'm in the shadows, trying to find my light." With an earnest look, he placed a hand on her shoulder, his warmth igniting a rush of emotions. "You're in the light now, Sarah. You just need to step into it." She looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his reassurance, and found nothing but sincerity. But the inner voice of doubt still whispered, gnawing at the edges of her newfound confidence. "I appreciate your support, Noah," she said, swallowing hard. "It means a lot to me." Before he could respond, another cheerful voice broke through the moment. "Sarah, we need you over here." A group of students beckoned, their enthusiasm relentless. "Go on," Noah urged, a smile playing on his lips as he stepped back slightly. "They're right. You should soak this up." Reluctantly, she nodded, feeling the magnetic pull of the crowd drawing her away. "Thanks, Noah. I'll catch up with you soon." "Always," he replied, his gaze steady, as if anchoring her even as she walked away. The conversations with her classmates felt surreal, laughter bubbling up as they celebrated her victory. Photos were taken, and cheers erupted every time she raised her trophy triumphantly. But amidst the joy, the shadow of Grace loomed, her earlier words still echoing in Sarah's mind. "Don't forget to thank your fans, Sarah," one friend teased, nudging her playfully. Yeah, she laughed, but her heart felt heavy with uncertainty. As the commotion settled, Sarah found herself wandering back towards Noah, who was now standing alone, observing the festivities. He looked thoughtful, a slight frown on his face. She wondered what was going through his mind. "Hey, you!" she said, walking up to him. "Hey," he replied, a smile breaking through his contemplation. "Looks like you're the star of the show." "Thanks to you," she countered, feeling a warm blush creep into her cheeks. "Still, you should take all the credit. You did the hard work," he said, his sincerity making her heart flip-flop. For a moment, they stood in a comfortable silence, the noise of the fair fading into the background. Then Noah leaned slightly closer, a playful glint in his eye. "So, what's next for the champion?" "I'm not sure yet," she admitted, a flicker of uncertainty returning. "I'd love to continue with environmental science, but there's so much pressure about what comes after high school." "Pressure can be overwhelming," he said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "But you shouldn't let it dictate your path. Follow your passion, and the rest will fall into place." "Easier said than done," she replied, a hint of sarcasm lacing her words. But his encouraging gaze made her feel lighter. "True, but you've got a spark that could ignite change," he said, his intensity making her pulse race again. "You can't ignore that." Just then, Grace approached them again, her presence as striking as ever. "Noah, there you are," she chimed, her voice laced with charm. "I was just looking for you." "Grace," he said, his tone a mixture of surprise and something less enthusiastic. "Still hanging out with the local talent, I see," she quipped, her gaze drifting to Sarah with a scrutinizing smile. "Sarah won first place," Noah said, his voice firm. "You should congratulate her." "Oh, I'm sure she's basking in all the glory," Grace replied, her tone dripping with mockery. "It must be nice to finally have a moment in the spotlight." "Why do you have to do that?" Noah snapped, indignation flaring in his eyes. "You could be supportive instead of condescending." "Relax, Noah. I'm just being playful," Grace retorted, though her gaze remained icy. Sarah felt the tension rise, the air thick with unspoken words. "It's fine," she interjected, trying to diffuse the situation. "I appreciate any congratulations, Grace." "Congratulations are easy to give, but harder to mean," Grace shot back, a piercing smile barely masking her disdain. "Noah just said he thinks I'm talented," Sarah replied, trying to hold her ground. "And I believe in my work." "Of course you do," Grace said, rolling her eyes. "What else would you do?" "Why does it matter to you?" Noah asked, his voice rising slightly. "This is about Sarah's achievement, not your ego." Grace raised an eyebrow, her smirk unwavering. "Just trying to make sure everyone stays grounded. Wouldn't want anyone getting too carried away." "Noah," Sarah said softly, placing a hand on his arm, feeling a surge of warmth at the contact. "It's okay. I can handle it." He turned to her, concern etched on his face. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, really," she replied, offering him a reassuring smile. "I appreciate you standing up for me, but I can deal with this." With a resigned nod, he stepped back slightly, the tension in his shoulders easing, though his eyes remained steely focused on Grace. "Good luck, Sarah," Grace said dismissively, turning to leave, her voice trailing behind like a shadow. "Try to keep that trophy safe." The moment she was gone, Sarah turned to Noah, her heart still racing. "Thank you for defending me." "That was intense. I just don't want to see you undermined," he said, his voice serious. "You deserve recognition without someone trying to bring you down." "Is she like that often?" Sarah asked, curiosity mingling with concern. "More often than not," he said, shaking his head, frustration clear in his features. "She thrives on competition, and it's exhausting." "I can imagine," Sarah said, the weight of his words settling heavily in her chest. "But I don't want to become part of that game. I want to focus on my passion, not get caught up in rivalries." "Then don't," Noah replied, his gaze intense. "You're the only one who can define your journey. Don't let someone else dictate your worth. She felt the warmth of his support envelop her, a cocoon of safety amid the chaos. You really believe in me, don't you? She asked, her heart racing with curiosity. Of course I do, he said, his expression softening. You have a? The world around Sarah seemed to fade into a blur as she stood in front of Noah, feeling the steady weight of the trophy in her hands. The applause from the audience still echoed in her ears, but her heart was racing for an entirely different reason. I really appreciate you sticking up for me, she said, her voice soft yet laced with sincerity. Grace can be something else. Something else. Noah chuckled, but there was a hint of frustration in his tone. She's always been competitive, but that doesn't excuse her behavior. You deserve respect, Sarah. Thanks, she replied, her cheeks warming at his words. I just don't want my success to turn into some kind of rivalry. Noah's gaze bore into her, those piercing blue eyes filled with a mix of understanding and determination. You're right, it shouldn't feel like a competition. Your passion is what makes you shine. Don't let her dim that light. As he spoke, Sarah felt warmth spread through her, a feeling she hadn't quite expected to discover in the midst of her insecurities. The connection between them was palpable, a current that surged beneath the surface, teasing to be explored. Easier said than done, she said, letting out a small laugh to ease the tension. Especially when I feel like I'm constantly in the shadows. You need to embrace the spotlight, Sarah, Noah said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. You've earned it. You have talent. Raw, undeniable talent. She felt a flutter deep within her, a combination of shyness and thrill. The way he looked at her, the earnestness in his words, made her feel like she was the only person in the crowded convention hall. I'll try, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper as she searched his face. But what if it's just a fluke? What if I can't keep this up? No, he said firmly, shaking his head. You've worked too hard for this to be a fluke. Trust me. Just then, laughter erupted nearby, pulling Sarah's attention away from Noah. It was a group of students laughing over some shared joke, and for a moment she felt the familiar pang of comparison creeping back. See? Everyone else looks like they're having so much fun, she said, trying to mask the twinge of envy in her voice. I feel like I'm not quite fitting in. No one is like you, Sarah, Noah insisted, his tone earnest. And fitting in doesn't mean losing your identity. It means being true to yourself. His words resonated deep within her, and as she looked into his eyes, she felt a new resolve building. Thanks, Noah. That actually helps a lot. Good, he said, a warm smile breaking across his face. Because I want to see you thrive. You deserve every bit of this moment. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the weight of the world around them lifted. The tension shifted, wrapping around them like a cocoon, and Sarah felt a thrill of something she couldn't quite name, an electric chemistry that crackled in the space between them. But just as quickly as it blossomed, the moment shattered. A familiar voice broke through like a beam of cold light. Noah, can we have a word? Grace called out, her voice sharp and confident, slicing through the atmosphere. Ooh, Noah muttered under his breath, the irritation evident on his face. I swear she has a radar for us. Hey. It's okay, Sarah said quickly, feeling a sudden rush of protectiveness for Noah. You should go see what she wants. No, it's not okay, he replied, shaking his head. She shouldn't be interrupting this moment for you. Really, Noah, I'm fine, she assured him. It's your friend. You should talk to her. He hesitated, visibly torn between loyalty to Sarah and the need to address Grace. Finally, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, but I'll be right back. Sure, she said, forcing a smile as he walked towards Grace. As he approached, Sarah felt an unsettling knot in her stomach. Watching their interaction from afar, she couldn't shake the feeling that Grace's presence loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to overshadow their moment. Hey, you. she murmured to herself, taking a deep breath in an attempt to ground herself. "You've got this." Noah and Grace exchanged words, their body language shifting like a tide. He stood tall, while Grace leaned in a bit too closely, her laughter ringing out like a bell, drawing attention to their conversation. Sarah could see the way Noah's expression shifted, the corners of his mouth tightening. Something about his posture told her he was trying to maintain composure, but it didn't sit right with her. "Do you think she's always like this?" she wondered aloud, her heart heavy with a mix of irritation and uncertainty. Had she just stepped into a rivalry she hadn't intended to? "Hey, you okay?" a friend asked, snapping her back to reality. "Yeah, I'm fine," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "Just watching." "Watching? You're the star here. We should be celebrating you," her friend insisted, pulling her into a group of classmates waiting for her. "Right," Sarah said, but her heart wasn't in it. As they celebrated and took selfies, Sarah felt a familiar pang of longing for the genuine connection she had shared with Noah moments before. Why did it feel like that connection was slipping through her fingers? "Sarah," one of her friends called out, pulling her back into the moment. "Let's take a picture with your trophy." "Okay," she laughed. But her smile felt a little strained. As the flashes of cameras lit up the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between her and Noah. The warmth that had enveloped them seemed to flicker like a candle struggling against the wind. "Where's Noah?" she asked, scanning the room. But he was still engaged with Grace, whose magnetic presence seemed to draw everyone in like a moth to a flame. "Still talking to that girl?" her friend teased, raising an eyebrow. "Seems like he's wrapped around her finger." "Yeah, well, you know how it is," Sarah said, forcing a laugh, though her heart twisted with jealousy. "She always seems to know how to get his attention. Maybe he just likes the attention." Her friend shrugged, not catching the tension in Sarah's voice. But it was too late. Doubt crept in, and she felt like the ground below her was shifting. "Do you think that's it?" Sarah asked, heart racing. "Could be," her friend said, shrugging again. "But honestly, if he's interested in you, he wouldn't let her distract him." "Right," Sarah murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at her. "I don't know what's going on between them." As she watched Noah's interactions with Grace, she felt a rush of emotions, jealousy, frustration, and a tightness in her chest. Did he really see her as someone worth pursuing, or was she just another notch on his belt? Just then, Noah broke away, heading back toward her with a determined stride. His eyes lit up when he spotted her, and for a fleeting moment she felt the connection reignite. "Sarah!" he called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "I'm sorry about that. Grace just—" "Noah!" "It's fine," she interrupted, trying to mask the twinge of hurt. "You don't need to explain." But his expression darkened slightly. "It's not fine. She just knows how to push my buttons, and I shouldn't have let her." "Really, it's okay," Sarah insisted, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm just happy to be here." "Are you?" he asked, concern etched across his features. "You don't look it." "I'm just trying to process everything," she admitted, the honesty slipping out before she could catch it. "This day has been a whirlwind." "Yeah, it has," he started, but Gracie's voice rang out again, drowning out their conversation. "Hey, Noah, you've got to see this," she called, her tone like a siren song. He hesitated, glancing back at Sarah, torn between the two of them. Go," Sarah said quickly, forcing a smile again. "I can handle this. It's your friend after all." "No, I'd rather be with you," he replied, his brow furrowing in frustration. "But I can't hold you back," she insisted, her heart racing. "Enjoy the moment. You deserve it." "Are you sure?" he asked, his gaze searching hers. "Absolutely," she said, though inside she felt a pang of worry. "I'll be right here." Reluctantly, he nodded and walked back toward Grace, who was already clapping her hands to gather attention. Zara felt a pang of loneliness wash over her as she watched him go. "Hey, champion!" one of her friends called, pulling her back into the moment. "Let's